If you think buying a home in Toronto only takes a few weeks, you might be in for a little bit of surprise. On today's video, we're going to talk about the journey of buying a home in Toronto from start to finish. We're going to talk about how many phases there are, how long each phase is, and from getting your finances done to the point where you actually take possession of the home likely takes longer than you think. So let's jump into it. Phase one is getting your finances sorted out. Now, I'm a big fan of mortgage brokers, but you basically have two options when you officially want to get your pre-approval sorted out. You can talk to your bank representative or you can talk to a mortgage broker. Now, for me, the reason that I'm a big fan of mortgage brokers is a few reasons. One, you have plenty more options. Okay. Two, mortgage brokers are much more thorough right away when you're going through the pre-approval process. So for example, I talk to people all the time who say, yeah, I went to the bank, they asked me a few questions, and then they told me that I could buy something in a range of blank to blank. And I asked them, I said, did they take down any information about what kind of, debts that you had? Did they ask you for any proof of your income? Nope, kind of none of that. So with a mortgage broker, it's much more thorough in terms of what your actual purchase point that you would get pre-approved for by a lender. It's much more thorough with a mortgage broker. Now, the analogy that I use when I talk to people about a mortgage broker or working with a mortgage broker is this. It's basically buying a new car. If I knew that I wanted to buy a new car or a car, it doesn't have to be brand new, and I knew that I needed something that had a certain amount of space on the inside. I wanted to have a certain amount of mileage. I didn't really care what color it was. I wanted to have certain features, like with the car itself. And I went to a Honda dealership. Well, let's say that the car, based on everything that I needed, let's say the perfect car for me was actually a Ford, for example. But I just decided to go to the Honda dealership because it was close to my house and my parents used to own a Honda and whatever. If the person at the Honda dealership kind of knows that the right car for me isn't actually at that dealership, do you think that they're going to send me down the street to the Ford dealership? No, they're going to they're going to try to put me into one of their products that they have at the Honda dealership. So if you go to your bank and it happens to be TD, for example, well, the mortgage products that they offer and the rates and all that kind of stuff might not be perfect for you, but they're not going to send you to a different bank. They're going to want to get you into a TD mortgage. So that's what I mean about options, is that when you work with a mortgage broker, they look at you as a client, what your financial profile is, all that kind of stuff, and then they shop you around to most of the lending options that are out there. There's a few exceptions. For example, RBC does not work with mortgage brokers, so you wouldn't have access to RBC products, and I think CIBC is one more, but there's nothing stopping you necessarily from going to RBC and speaking with a mortgage professional there, and then speaking with a mortgage broker and getting access to all the other, and that basically covers all your bases. Now, once you have your pre-approval sorted out, the amount that you qualify for in terms of the total amount and the amount that you maybe want to spend could be two very different things. So certainly take a look at that. I would say in most cases, the clients that I work with tend to be qualified for a much higher property purchase than what they actually want to spend when they take a look at what a monthly payment would cost them. A bank or a mortgage, the lender does not take into consideration is your lifestyle. So they look at your income, they look at your debts, the things that you have to service, but they don't take a look at, well, what do you spend on a Friday night for takeout, or, how much do you spend on concerts on a monthly basis or something like that. So you will want to do your own budgeting and make sure that you are comfortable with what it is that you would be spending on your housing compared to the lifestyle that you want to have. If those things are not in simpatico, you might have to make a sacrifice somewhere. Maybe it's, okay, we're buying in a cheaper place, or maybe we're making some changes to, how and where we spend our money. Now, what do you have to look at on a monthly basis in terms of like your monthly, what's going out for housing? You want to take a look at your mortgage payment. You want to take a look at your property taxes. And if you're buying a condo, you want to take a look at your maintenance fees. And then regardless of what you're buying, you got to take a look at your utilities and your insurance. Those things are all kind of like forced fixed costs, if you will. The one thing that I will point out is that if you're buying a freehold property, do not sleep on property taxes. You can pay easily $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 a year for property taxes. And that means that we're talking anywhere from $500 to $600+ a month on property taxes. I find that a lot of people don't factor that into their budgeting. You definitely want to make sure that you consider that when you're looking at your monthly budget. Now, how long should the financing phase take? If you're really on top of your stuff and you have all your documents and everything kind of lined up, got your letters of employment, and you've got your pay stubs, and you've got just all the information that the mortgage broker or the bank is actually going to need, it could take you a week-ish, maybe 2 at the most. If you're not quite ready to buy, or if you're a procrastinator, or if you're a really busy person, you've got a lot going on in your life, it could easily drag out, where the bank, the mortgage broker are waiting for you to send them documents, waiting for you to send them certain things. And so it could go on and on. But I would say it should take 1 to 2 weeks. Phase 2 is your discovery and your research phase. And this is where you're figuring out what is important to you. And there's all kinds of different factors that you may want to consider. Some of you know exactly what you want, and you know exactly where you want to be. And that would make this phase relatively short. Some of you need some help. You're not sure what it is that's important to you and the types of things that would really kind of drive what the right place is that you want to purchase. I would encourage you to make what I call a needs versus wants list. Needs are like, these are things that I must have, and I will not consider buying a property that does not have this thing or these things. And the wants list is, these are things that I would really like to have. But at the end of the day, if I find a place that meets all of my needs, I would sacrifice on all of these wants. Now, some factors that you want to consider: the location, obviously. Some people know exactly where they want to be. I wouldn't consider living anywhere but the beaches, for example. There are certain neighborhoods in Toronto that people just feel very, very strongly about. Maybe they grew up there. Maybe they just love that neighborhood. And so that kind of determines everything for them. And it's just finding the right house within that neighborhood. But for other people, there are a number of other factors that are important to them. And once all those kind of boxes get checked, that is actually what determines what the location would be. The property type, so detached, semi-detached, the size, how many bedrooms and bathrooms, the parking needs, what types of things does the house offer in terms of, do you need a modern interior? Do you need a finished basement? Are you really tall and you need a basement with a certain height, for example? Schools and the quality of the schools, access to transit, how walkable is the neighborhood? Do you love the ability to walk and get a coffee? Do you love the ability to walk and get fruits and vegetables at a local stand? Something like that. Those are not all the things, not an inclusive list, but things that you would want to consider in terms of like, okay, what makes that place perfect for me that I'm going to look at buying? What are some things that you can use to help you during this phase? The first thing I would really stress is having open lines of communication, either with the person that you are potentially purchasing a property with, or with people who are close to you in your life, your parents, your brother, your sister, or great friends who have recently just bought. Learn from them and learn from the people who have done it before so that you can kind of get some perspective on that. I would also encourage you to maybe attend some open houses to see types of properties and what the streets look like that those properties are on. And the other thing I would really encourage you to use, which I think is an underrated tool, is Google Street View. You can see from the luxury of your house or on your phone, wherever it is that you are, what a street, kind of feels like just by using Google Street View. So that's a really good one. Now, the other thing with this phase is that you want to know whether your budget is feasible, and how would you know whether your budget is kind of reasonable for certain locations and certain types of houses? You can use Realm. So that's a tool that real estate agents have access to that they can give their clients so that they can take a look at what's available, what has sold, what did places sell for, and etc. There's a tool, I hate to say it, but House Sigma is a great tool that a lot of people use. I hate to say it because it's a tool that was created by a brokerage. House Sigma is a brokerage, and so they use that as a lead capture tool. That's totally fine. They did a really good job, and they've built something that people really enjoy using. And so, kudos to them. That's another thing that you could use to stay on top of what comes on the market and what does it eventually sell for. And you want to start to learn those things for yourself so that you get a feel for, hey, the things that I want, this is what it's going to cost. Now, how long should phase 2 be, this kind of research and discovery phase? If you know exactly what you want, it could be a week or less. If you're a research freak like me, maybe it's kind of 4, 5, 6 weeks, but it shouldn't be any longer than that, I don't think. Phase 3 is the touring and offering part of the process. And, this can either take a really short period of time or a really long period of time. And it depends on a lot of different factors. I've worked with some clients who have seen and bought the first place that they saw. I've been with some clients, this is very rare, but some clients who took 5 years. Now, the people who took 5 years, for example, was one set of clients. And it was not like we looked at 2 to 3 houses a day every week for 5 years. There were, stops and starts and changes to their criteria and all that kind of stuff, and that's fine. But there's a wide range of how much time people spend in the market, certainly in my experience. But my gut tells me that my clients typically see, I would say, around 10 properties before they have, kind of landed on the one that they think is the right one for them. Some people need to see that many or more because they actually need to use the viewings in order to help them narrow down what's important to them. So using those property tours, not just to find the place that they want to call home, but using it as as data points, basically, to say, okay, I see that this place has this kind of layout or this kind of thing going on in the basement or where it's located, and you know what, this kind of house or this location is not right for me, but I wouldn't have known it unless I had come here and kind of seen it for myself. Once you have found places that you like, it is critical that you are what I call swimming in the right pond. So what that means is what your budget has to be aligned with the places that you want and what they actually sell for. If your budget is $800,000 and you are looking and trying to offering at places that are selling for 1.1 million or whatever the case is, it's going to take you forever. You could maybe never buy a place. So the length of time that you spend in phase 3, especially during the offering period, it is so critical that your budget and the places that you want to buy are in alignment. Now, I would say relatively infrequently are my clients what we call one and done. So what that means is making an offer and acquiring that property. And oftentimes it's not because of, a negotiation process or anything like that, but oftentimes because properties that my clients are looking to buy, there's competition. That's been a very kind of normal thing in Toronto. Is plenty of competition on properties, not in the condo market, but in the freehold market. Although there has been competition in the past in the condo market, there's no question about that. The number of offers that you have to put on, it really depends on how competitive your offers are going to be. And again, that alignment of your budget and what it is that you're looking for. The length of time that you could spend in phase 3 could be, again, a very short period of time. It could be a week if you see 1 or 2 places and you end up trying to buy and are successfully able to acquire one, but it could be 8 to 10 weeks or more, again, depending on your success and the state of the market and the amount of competition that you have. You've submitted an offer and it's been accepted. This is phase 4, the conditional period and or the closing period. There may not be a conditional period. A conditional period is when you submit an offer on a property, usually a condo if there's a condition, and it's like, hey, I want some time to sort out my financing now that we have a deal. You and I, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, or maybe I want to do a home inspection, or maybe I want to take the status certificate for this condo building and give it to my lawyer so that they can take some time to, review and make sure that I'm getting into a building that's financially stable. Conditions that are like financing, home inspection, those kinds of things, generally for freehold properties, are 5 business days. A status certificate condition could be 10 to 15 business days, which, if you think about it, is 2 to 3 weeks long, because a status certificate has to be ordered and has to be processed by the building and all that kind of stuff. The conditional period could be 1 week to maybe 3 weeks. The closing period could be anywhere from 30 days, so let's call it 4 and a bit weeks, but not quite 5 weeks, generally up to 60 days-ish. So we're talking kind of 1 month to 2 months. It probably won't be, I can almost guarantee it won't be shorter than 1 month. It can be longer than 2 months or 60 days, but it really depends. But I would say anything that's 90 days or more in terms of a closing period, so from the time that you have an accepted agreement to the time that that property actually becomes yours and transitions from the seller to you, I would say is generally not too much longer than 60 days. So the total amount of time that you're probably looking at spending in phase 4 is anywhere from 4-ish weeks up to 8 to 10 weeks. So if you add up all those times, you're looking at probably a minimum of a month, and it could easily be much longer than that. It depends on how prepared you are. It depends on how well you know yourself and what you need. It depends on other things like market dynamics. What's the inventory like, just generally speaking? What's the inventory levels for the place that you're looking for? Are you looking for a needle in a haystack? What about your budget? What about your criteria? Lastly, not being clear on what you want could absolutely drag the process out. And again, I've said it before, I'll say it again, not having your budget in alignment with your expectations can really cause the process to extend quite a bit of time. So all those things kind of wrap into how much time you spend, but in my opinion, you're looking at a minimum of 1 month. It'd probably be a little bit longer than that at the least. So what can you do now? Nobody does, but even if you are well out from wanting to start your search in earnest, I think you should start your pre-approval process now. Again, nobody does it. It's always kind of rushed and last minute, but take my word for it. I think you'll be in a much better spot if you take a look at your pre-approval now, even if you're looking, let's say you think you're not ready to buy kind of 4+ months from now. Do a needs versus wants analysis. And if you are looking for some help with needs versus wants, what kind of factors should I be considering, and all that kind of stuff, I want you to click the link in the description below, or you can send me an email. I've got a timeline checklist with all kinds of different resources, different factors that you can kind of check off with boxes and say, hey, these things I want to consider, and these are the things that are important to me. That'll help you get clear on what your needs and your wants are so that you can kind of hit the ground running when you start looking for your property. I'm Jamie Harnish. I am with Bosley Real Estate. I want to thank you so much for your time. And again, I would love to hear from you if you do need some help with that timeline checklist, and we'll make sure that we see you on the next video. Take care.